Today, American higher education is facing lower funding. Plus, drugstores pledge to expand on-site testing capacity. And why the coronavirus is sending Beyond Meat stock soaring. I'm MacKenzie Sigalos, and this is CNBC After Hours. Let's take a look at the scoreboard. Stocks finished lower across the major indexes. Today was the Dow's first negative day, following 4 straight days of gains. Despite today's loss, the Dow is on track for its best month since 2002. And I want to point out shares of Google parent company Alphabet. They popped an extended trading just after the tech company released first quarter earnings and posted better than expected revenue. All right, and now for 2 of today's biggest developments in the global coronavirus pandemic. First, a lot of updates about testing capacity in the U.S. Lab giant Quest Diagnostics has announced increased access to antibody testing, which shows if someone has already been exposed to the virus. Quest says individuals can now request one of these tests without having to get approval from a doctor beforehand. According to the website, the test costs $119. And last night, drugstores and retailers like CVS, Walgreens, and Walmart announced expanded testing capacity at their brick-and-mortar locations. Here are some numbers for you. CVS plans to have tests at 1,000 locations across the country by the end of May, with the ability to process 1.5 million tests per month. Walgreens will open 5 more drive-through locations in 4 additional states this week, and will eventually have sites in 49 states and Puerto Rico. And Walmart expects to have 45 testing sites up and running by the end of next week, and 100 sites open by the end of May. And second, the Paycheck Protection Program, or PPP, Round 2 is up and running. The original $350 billion set aside for small business relief ran out earlier this month. Congress allocated $310 billion more dollars, and the program opened up for applications again yesterday. Now, since then, the Small Business Administration has approved 475,000 loans worth $52 billion. One big difference in this second round, the Treasury Department issued some guidelines about who should and who shouldn't apply for these forgivable loans. Most importantly, Treasury said that it's very unlikely that publicly traded companies would qualify for these small business loans. These new rules were issued after the public learned that during the first round of PPP, more than 245 public companies applied for at least $900 million of basically free government money, sparking so much outrage that some, like Shake Shack, returned the money that they had been given. Now that we're in day 2 of this second round, the program is seeing unprecedented demand, and we'll have to wait and see how smoothly this wave of funding goes. And one extra thing. This afternoon, Vice President Mike Pence caused some controversy during a tour of the Mayo Clinic's facilities in Minnesota. Now, the leader of the White House Coronavirus Task Force did not wear a mask during the tour, despite the clinic's policy that all visitors wear masks. In a since-deleted tweet, the Mayo Clinic said it had indeed informed the vice president of the mask policy. Okay, let's get to our sound check. Here's a roundup of the day's biggest action and what the top newsmakers and business leaders had to say on CNBC's airwaves today.
I never expected in a million years that the Los Angeles Lakers, which I'm a big fan of the team, but I'm not a big fan of the fact that they took a $4.6 million loan. I think that's outrageous, and I'm glad they've returned it, or they would have had liability. I think it was inappropriate for most of these companies to take the loans. It was clear there was a certification. We don't think that they ever should have been allowed to.
Here in Connecticut, yeah, we've had about a $450 million hit in revenue just this fiscal year. Because unlike other recessions where it's mainly the income tax that gets hit, in this recession it's the income tax as well as the sales tax. We are going to need some help from the feds. They don't want states across the country slashing spending, slashing social services, and raising taxes.
We'll burn about $900 million this month, and hopefully it gets better in May, and then better in June, and then hopefully remarkably better in July. Obviously, we can't sustain this kind of cash burn indefinitely. And we'll just have to see, where we are after September the 30th. If the traffic doesn't materialize, then there's no choice but to downsize the airline.
We're really not reopening. What we're doing is we're taking the restaurants where we are open and we're adding some limited dining. We now can add the ability for them to just sit at a distance and eat, as opposed to have to go eat in their laps in their car or on the tailgate of a truck. And it's just a very slow addition of some additional capacity inside the restaurant.
And now, a deeper dive into one industry turned upside down by the coronavirus outbreak: America's colleges and universities. Many colleges have been operating virtually since lockdown measures began in March, and it's unclear if students can even come back to campus in September. Harvard has already said it would be open for the fall semester, but some or all learning may still be remote. The pandemic has already caused a series of financial blows for colleges, which have lost revenue from housing, dining, sporting events, just to name a few. And to make matters worse, many state school systems have to figure out how to operate within a state budget that has been decimated by high COVID-19 response costs. CNBC correspondent Scott Cohn is on the ground in Santa Cruz, California. He's got the latest on the challenges facing higher education.
So we're on the campus of the University of California at Santa Cruz, the home of the banana slugs, and this should be probably the most exciting time of the year on campus. You've got commencement coming up in about 6 weeks. You have students anticipating the end of the year, and also families and students, new students, making the decision about whether to come here next year and putting down their money. Well, they've been virtual here since March 16th. And the fall semester is now still an open question, as it is on campuses across the country. And University of California System President Janet Napolitano said just in the month of March, the unanticipated costs and revenue losses, again, just in the month of March system-wide, about $500 million. And it could get worse from there. The American Council on Education says that nationwide, they are looking at enrollment declines in the fall of about 15%, and that includes 25% declines in international students, which are the most lucrative students. They are either going to be taking gap years or not coming at all, and so it's a huge question, because tuition is really where the money is. So Roy Matthew over at Deloitte Consulting says that colleges are really being forced to take a look at a business model that has been in place literally for centuries and trying to decide what to do. And students and their families are going to decide whether it's worth the cost of coming to college when so much more of it is virtual. The situation becomes even more complicated when you're looking at public schools like UC Santa Cruz and all the many other public universities across the country, because not only are they hitting this crunch with tuition, with declining enrollment, but they rely heavily on state support. And we know what's going on with states that are under such a crunch with their own COVID-19 costs, their own declining economies. So it's unclear whether they'll be able to provide the kind of support that they've provided in the past for state colleges and universities, which was already on the decline from many years ago. It's going to be years, really, before this is all figured out.
All right, we'll leave you with a numbers round. Let's kick it off with 50. Shares of plant-based meat company Beyond Meat have surged 50% so far this month, as the coronavirus pandemic wreaks havoc on America's meat suppliers. Now, the outbreak has forced several processing plants to close, leaving customers like grocers and restaurants on the cusp of a meat shortage. So there's your demand for burger patties from Beyond Meat. Earlier today, President Trump said he plans to sign a new executive order to keep these meat processing plants open. Next, 125. Silicon Valley's favorite casual sneaker company has raced into a new business. Allbirds debuted its first running shoe today, priced at $125 per pair. Now, athletic footwear is a super competitive space, dominated by the likes of Nike, Adidas, and Asics, and it's been made more difficult by the economic downturn caused by the COVID-19 crisis. But Allbirds co-founder Tim Brown told CNBC that under quarantine, people are, quote, running more than ever. And finally, $95 million. Trolls World Tour generated $95 million of rental fees from nearly 5 million rentals in about 3 weeks. Now, Universal, CNBC's parent company, decided to make the film available via in-home rental instead of postponing its release date after all the movie theaters shut down as part of lockdown measures. NBC Universal CEO said that even when they've reopened, he expects to release movies both in theaters and on demand. That's it for After Hours. Stay up to date in real time with CNBC. Get the details on Google's earnings, along with the latest numbers from Starbucks and chipmaker AMD, and catch every development in this historic battle against coronavirus and the unprecedented economic fallout by going to CNBC.com and downloading the CNBC app. And from our home office to yours, good night and stay healthy. We'll be here again on Thursday. See you then.